Hello, everyone. This is Captain Yam Rack for the Big Fat Stack, and I'm here to host the Bear and Yam podcast. This is going to be number one. And the topics of this amazing live stream are going to be, I guess, are going to be just about some stuff I decided to do topics on today. Systemic racist agendas don't exist. The Illuminati is hypernormalization. Basically, talking about something that Hammerhead mentioned in the stream. And tribal wisdom always rings true are going to be the topics of this bitchin' live stream. So, without further ado, I will just get into something that I saw on TV today. They were talking about the Biden and the Kamala Harris campaign, and whenever I see the Biden mask, the Biden Harris mask, I admit I want to puke. It's not. It's so gaudy. It's so pompous. It's so in your face. Just I don't give a fuck about anything that goes on in your life. I just want your vote. And that rhetoric that you hear on TV is just a load of garbage. I mean, this whole people have the potential to be Nazis in real life. I mean, how unself-aware is that, really? The fact that they fear that people out there could become Nazis. It's almost like the way that Nazis viewed Jewish people, like as this threat, this external threat. Kind of interesting the way that they categorize people who they consider so-called Nazis or the alt-right. And I hope this stream doesn't get taken down. That would not. But so I'm trying to say it a little bit more, in not an inflammatory way. But the sad thing that I always fixate on when I hear stuff like that in the media is this idea that people are going to become more racist than they already are and start launching campaigns on other races, or at least they admit that that's what's happening now, but they fear for a future where that escalates, that kind of animosity towards other races reaches a peak. Not to say that we are not in a peak right now. Do I ever think racism has been worse than it is now in the United States? Oh yeah. I mean, people getting lynched for just the most asinine reasons. You got Emmett Till, you got stuff like that. But I mean, I don't think it's as clear cut of an answer as people make it out to be. But simple, plain and put, I mean, in many ways it's not as racist, and in many ways it is. But the point about racism that I want to make is, and something that I always found funny is, people think that agendas are something that's practiced from one race to another race by members of your own race. Like, you won't be able to notice racism if somebody who's the same race as you treat somebody of a different race. When I always understood racist agendas pretty much to be things that are practiced on your own race by members of your race. So, to give an example, in one of the families that I grew up in, who were African American, they had they were very proud, and if somebody wouldn't live up to their standards, they would basically disown that person or treat that person as if they are not allowed at certain family gatherings or family functions or held in the same regard as other members of the family. Now that could be considered an agenda because you have you have like a motivation for it because those people are always in your presence as members of your family, as relatives in your own ethnic unit, and so they're kind of I guess an easy target for say in-group preference, the aspirations of the family goals, the family dreams, the handling of family assets and liabilities, the responsibilities of associating with one another and upholding a reputation. It's kind of like a very high context thing to wrap your head around, which is what I notice that people don't get or they don't understand, and instead they will rather just come up with something else to explain their kind of dumb behaviors or their stupid behaviors that they do in life. And so the reason why I don't think that these kinds of things can be systemic or a result of the system is that one, I mean, the system is very much anti-family, and with the example I laid out, these agendas are most likely going to be practiced by families. So there's obviously a disconnect there with the formatting of these said ideas or agendas, or I guess propositions or something, or you're supposed to fulfill your purpose under the agenda as a cattle, like as obviously as a vessel of yourself, your former self, or your assumed business name, your ens legis. But there's a different kind of racism that I feel like people, I guess, don't fetishize or don't, I guess, fellate with their political, I guess you could say their political tentacles, I will call them, and that would be, I guess, from a more traditional side, and that would be in my topic that I'll approach at the end of this. But with the whole like stupid ass Biden thing and Kamala Harris, the stuff that I saw today that I brought up in the beginning was and a lot of brothers in the community have been doing research on these topics, so I've been kind of thinking about it in the same line with them, in regards to not just the conspiracies, but the development of conspiracies and the kind of environment that it takes to actually create conspiracy theories and conspire and gather evidence and whatnot, because it's almost like the scene of a crime. It's not you're not witnessing the crime, you're seeing the pieces of the puzzle that's left behind after somebody's world has just been shattered, or somebody's just had their entire legacy ripped out from under them through one swift act. And I guess amidst all this confusion that's going on that you see nowadays, people have kind of gotten used to the idea of there being a power, there being like a hidden element, some secret society, a crime family, or criminal element that controls everything, all the assets, all of the kind of like the deep state and everything. And it gets to this one British director whose movie I didn't really have time to watch, but I know about the movie and I read the synopsis, and it's called HyperNormalization. And so that to get into that topic, the thing that I believe is really, really interesting about today's day and age is how in a world that's even more chaotic, people seem to think that things have a potential to be um, highly structured and very very centralized. Even though we've kind of gone completely in the opposite direction of anything of the sort in recent times. And the reason why I think that is just because, like, look at our leadership. These people are are examples of, I mean, highly charismatic, highly. I was just watching a clip of Trump the other day signing a bunch of like meeting people and signing things over and over again, and seeing the reaction in the comments and in the audience members and people who are around him. Just uber confidence. And it's interesting to see how confident how people are. And I'm not hating on Donald Trump. I don't favor him like over any other presidential candidate. Um, well, in terms of the ticket, it's a different story. But I mean, like, I don't. There's things I don't like about him. Yeah, for sure. But for the most part, he's fine in my book. I mean, he's the president. So it is what it is in regard to that. Their reaction is just, even the people who hate him, is just priceless, because you can see that everyone has put so much attention onto him as a knowing or not knowing or hiding that he knows, when he probably he puts on his pant leg this, like, one way or one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And this kind of very visible phenomenon, I think, is really behind why people believe in like these, like crime families, or organized families, or, well, like, when all of this, or like in like Soros and all of this entity Gates and all these conspiracies, and they lump everything together under this lens, Illuminati. For the most part, just to, I guess, normalize everything and project power onto individuals who they believe, can like dictate their individual, who like basically take away their free will. And they're I guess, apparently, because a lot of people think about it a lot. And I mean, kind of connecting with my previous topic, it's almost like, at some point you have to realize that people vying for this amount of power pretty much are surrounded by people that are like this, and so they kind of have a lot in order, invested in kind of fighting amongst themselves. So I mean, if you look at the way that certain people move, like in public, you can pretty much tell that they're on ice, or like they're on thin ice, or they're kind of just a puppet on a lonely string, just waiting to get canceled again, just like everybody else has been canceled the past couple of years. Yes, but yes, the systemic thing that doesn't make sense to me is, people need to remember past a single or two generations in order for systemic things to actually have weight. Is why I believe that it doesn't make sense to go deep into history and do a rabbit hole deep dive into history without recognizing the world of the text that's being written, that feeds into your emotional needs. Like, a lot of things in history have basically been written there to make us feel a certain way, whether it be like complacent, or whether it be mediocre or small, or anytime they go through what great engineers or writers or people are able to create, out of thin air, it seems, because we're not there to actually experience it, just leaves us in awe of like the sheer fact of our existence. And to think that any individual human being, regardless of their circumstantial moral luck or lack thereof, can't gain access to this hidden realm of knowledge and therefore have more structure and sustainability and a higher quality of life. Again, it's an agenda that's put on to us by other human beings who are vying for power in this, I guess, this market, for all intents and purposes. And you could even call it a moral desert too, because there really is no right or wrong answer in all of this. And when people kind of like, it's always funny to me the way that certain people will approach a topic, but they will neglect like the acknowledging that they had a spiritual awakening, just prior or recently towards before approaching this topic at all. Like they never really thought about it, or they thought about it a little bit, but they kind of just push it off to the side, and then they go through a spiritual awakening, and then it's back to this topic. But one thing that I think it really does is it carries us through sort of each cycle, kind of putting us into another, I guess, like ego trip where I just feel like mankind isn't where it's supposed to be in terms of like mentally being able to just finally let go of that sort of petty fetishization of, I guess, of other cultures and stuff that I feel like is going on in a big way right now at this very minute. And which I guess that leads me into my next topic, which is that tribal wisdom always rings true. And tribal wisdom always rings true simply for the fact that if the spirits or whatever that tribal wisdom supposedly adheres to, this acknowledgement of like spiritual things, karmic decks and curses and archetypes and things like that, that eventually people succumb to them one way or another. And this is kind of seen a lot in horror films. It's seen a lot in tragedies, and it's kind of one of those things that people always tend to forget, or they think, it's just a bunch of hocus pocus, and then they wonder why they have all this dumb shit happening in their life. The story, like I always bring up, is about the village and the black house in the village. And the specialist rolls through this tribal village. There is a black house. The tribal elders tell the person not to approach the house, that it's filled with demonic spirits. And the person approaches the house, tests the house. There's nothing wrong with it. In his estimation, he stays the night in the house. And when he approaches, or when he eventually leaves the house, the people are outside and they have torches and they have spears, and they're aggressive with the outsider, and they tell him that how dare you violate our tribal laws, our customs. This is a massive insult to our to the generations prior, or the generations afterwards, and they carry out retribution on this person by killing him or sacrificing him or hanging him or something like that. And it's kind of like why I always like question like the weird stuff that people say that they blame on something that's like that is physically impossible. And then they wonder why, and then they're still stuck in that argument because they can't actually finish the argument because to finish it would acknowledge that we're already going into this fantasy world. And I guess part of the tribal wisdom is a lot of the elders, a lot of the young people will understand parts of the story or understand inflections in the story and or understand or be able to embellish the story even without any knowledge of like the outcome, which is amazing, which is good. Talent, it requires a lot of talent. But the reason why the elders start telling the story is because they know how it ends. So it's kind of like one of those things where you're questioning where the information's coming from, but you have no idea. So it's kind of like it always just is like funny to me the way that a lot of people choose to argue without knowing really the true extent of how deep a certain thing goes, or how deep the rabbit hole goes, or stuff along the lines of that. And yeah, the part about how I think this relates to the agendas is, I think that if white people, the thing that I realized about black people is the way that they view white people is is like all sophisticated, so and like high tech and like I've heard it a lot. They call white people rednecks, they call white people hillbillies, they call people this, but they never really they can't make fun of the European side, like unless they're French. Then again, maybe that's a misplaced that's a misplaced like assumption about American people for the most part. But what I really think it is when it comes to like the left or the right is like if you go to the left side, they always want to doubt, I guess, people the white race trying to take care of and propagate their own, or caring anything about their own lineage or their own heritage or something something of that nature. And it's funny to see how unaccepting people are of that, because it represents like a dirtiness to them that isn't politically correct. And the reason why I think that's very upsetting, or I'm very upset by that, or the reason why I think that that's should be very concerning to anybody who thinks clearly in this day and age, is that is basically the precursor to this like socialism, this need to I guess like redistribute the value gained from certain individuals who have like ethnic ties, like some sort of like ethnic or cultural value system that they stand on. Like it's like, think about it. I even think about it in terms of like when the Spanish came to South America, and they heard about all of the cities of gold and things like that, and then they thought to themselves, oh, we need to go and find that gold, because that would mean more riches for us. We would be able to like distribute that across all of our colonies, and we would become like the richest people on earth. And it's just like so much greed, and is what I noticed when people down other cultures or support how would Tico say it? He would say like support cultural norms, or support social norms over cultural norms. This ability to denigrate somebody's culture by virtue signaling about how valuable you are to society, because you're like this individual person. I'm my own person. I worked for everything I had. I got it all by myself. I got it from the gutter. When it's like you don't have any responsibility over where you were put. You don't have responsibility over like certain parts of how you develop that are out of control, obviously. So it's like one of those things where you question about how people can feel so connected to this reality, but they also have zero respect or zero, I guess, like awareness about where they come from or their heritage or their their um their background. And when it comes to these families and the stuff that people talk about, it's like they have like they're dissecting, they're like doxing like people who own like rich and famous people, individuals, and delving deep into their lives and stuff for what exactly did they of what of like how much of it did they actually earn? All of that bad karma and stuff like negative energy that's projected simply because a lot of people don't know what the hell is going on. Most of us don't know what the hell is going on, and we want to just put it all on this shadow organization. Kind of just stuff like that. I mean, what's your guys' thoughts about that? I mean, that's I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that itches in the back of your mind every once in a while. But yeah, I hope that those topics have come in clear. Kind of grinding this out at the wee hours. So I appreciate the one person who has been, or people, or many people, or interdimensional spirit that has been occupying that chat. Just making a quick podcast video. Those have been my 3 topics. If there's any questions, feel free to post those down in the comment box. If not, I have been the Baron Yam, the Red Pill Baron, and I wish you a very pleasant weekend. I will be back on the channel, coming back to do more podcasts and hopefully host some hangouts. So if you appreciate the content, please show your love any way that you can. And go over to the brothers in the manosphere and do the same. Be blessed, stay blessed. Always be there for yourself to catch your fall. And that is going to be it for me, guys. Have a good night. Baron Yam. And I'm out. Out like a light, bitches.